All right, welcome back to another edition of the Manifest It All podcast. And I have an encore episode for you with Dr. John Gray. It's been almost 2 years since our last amazing conversation. Of course, we'll drop that link down in the show notes. But if you weren't there for the first conversation, let me introduce you to Dr. John Gray, which it still amazes me when I tell people about your work, about his work, that they haven't heard of you. And so let me tell the world, let me tell our listeners who it is that you are. Dr. John Gray is the author of the most well-known and trusted relationship book of all time, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. USA Today listed his book as one of the top 10 most influential books of the last quarter century. In hardcover, it was the #1 best-selling book of the 90s. Dr. Gray's books are translated into 45 languages in more than 100 countries and continues to be a bestseller. Dr. Gray has written over 20 books, and his most recent book is Beyond Mars and Venus. And his Mars Venus book series has forever changed the way that men and women view their relationships. John helps men and women better understand and respect their differences in both personal and professional relationships. His approach combines specific communication techniques with healthy nutritional choices that create the brain and body chemistry for lasting health, happiness, and romance. His many books, blogs, and free online workshops at marsvenus.com provide practical insights to improve relationships at all stages of life and love. An advocate of health and optimal brain function, he also provides natural solutions for overcoming depression, anxiety, and stress to support increased energy, libido, hormonal balance, and better sleep. He's appeared repeatedly on Oprah, as well as the Dr. Oz show, Today, CBS This Morning, Good Morning America, and others, including the Manifest It All podcast. He's been profiled in Times, Forbes, USA Today, and People, and he was also the subject of a 3-hour special hosted by Barbara Walters. John Gray lives in Northern California, where for 34 years he happily shared his life with his beautiful wife, Bonnie, until her passing in 2018. They have 3 grown daughters and 5 grandchildren, and he is an avid follower of his own health and relationship advice. Welcome, John, back to the pod.
Thank you so much. It's happy to be back.
So let's get into it. I'm a big fan of just jumping straight into it. So in our last conversation, we talked so much about the differences between men and women, especially all of the updates in your book, Beyond Mars and Venus. So in your first book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, you highlighted the differences between men and women based on all of your years in counseling. But with the updated version, you brought in so much around hormonal differences, brain differences to really show the science behind the traditional roles of men and women and how we can be happy and fulfilled in life and love. And so I would love you to give perhaps a little bit of a summary on the differences between men and women so that then we can go into communication and polarity.
Sounds great. You know, in one sentence, I think someone did an interview with me recently and summed it up. I think it was she who came up with this nice phrase, but we have something called role mates, and then we have soulmates. And in a role mate relationship, we're there to fulfill each other's roles. Because in the past, men had a role, women had a role. Pretty much if you stuck to that role and you were successful, you're pretty fulfilled and happy. A soulmate is not fulfilling each other's roles, it's fulfilling each other's soul, which is to provide a higher level of love, a deeper level of emotional fulfillment. That's what we're looking for today. And because particularly when we don't have the traditional roles, as women are more independent, money makers, providing, so many women are actually making the same as their husbands or more than their husbands. Many men, because it's practical, the man will stay home with the children, the woman has her job. So we're all over the place. And Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus talked about the different misunderstandings that men and women have and how to, in some cases, correct it very quickly when people are in more traditional roles. But particularly, even back then, if it was a person who was not in an intimate relationship, and particularly if they didn't have children, they were more independent, they were single. Even then, sometimes women will go, I feel like, I'm from Mars. Because when I talk about Mars, we're talking about people who are independent. And we're talking about Venus, we're talking about the part of us which is dependent on something, particularly our partners. And dependence, not in a negative sense. A lot of women, that's a charged word. Doesn't mean you're needy, doesn't mean you have to have them and you can't be happy. It means that they're just like I'm dependent on food. I'm dependent on you in order to get my message out into the world. It's a healthy form of dependence. This is what life is. No person is an island. The whole idea of intimacy is, particularly for women, intimacy is I need to depend on you to provide a safe space, an unconditional space for me to open up and share my feelings, as opposed to someone who is going to be judgmental or critical or dismiss or minimize what I feel.
And I'm very glad that you said that because so many women think, I don't need a man. And correct, you don't need a man in the traditional sense. But what you're sharing is we do need that emotional connection, just like we need food, we need air, we need water. And so, how can we change a woman's perspective around a relationship, especially if she has been single, especially if she's been in her masculine energy, especially if she's just been raised in the current times and upbringings and after feminist movement of like, I can do it all.
Right. And there's this feeling when I counsel women, I counsel a lot of women and also relationships. But whenever women come in and they're stressed, often one of the things they say is, I feel overwhelmed. I feel like I do everything. I feel like I have to do everything. So whether they're single or they're in a relationship, there's this feeling of I have to do this and this and this. I have no time for me. I can't relax. And men typically don't say that. I was recently just giving a talk in a seminar, and I asked all the women, how many women feel like there's so many things you have to do, there's no time for you? And they all raised their hand. I mean, it was
I raise my
unanimous.
hand to
That's
that.
right. And I said, now, how many men feel that way? No man raised his hands. See, that's one of the differences. That's the challenge of men not understanding women, women not understanding men. The reason men don't become overwhelmed is before we become overwhelmed, our brain just goes into, well, I can't do everything, so I need to rest. We do that. It's not like I've analyzed it. It's not like I don't have so much stuff and I could say, oh, it's so overwhelming. I don't even go there because I'll do it tomorrow. I can only do one thing at a time. There's this sort of a mechanism inside of men that says, if I can't do it, then forget it. Do it another time. If there's nothing I can do about it ever, then it's not a problem at all. You just have to learn to live with it. Whereas women have a different set of genes, and that those genes, there are some differences. There's so many similarities between men and women. If you actually get down to the actual DNA with the Y chromosome that the male has, otherwise he has all of the genes, the X genes, all the genes that a woman has. We all, up about 3 weeks into the womb, we're all the same. And then when the Y chromosome gets activated, it releases only 23 genes. Now there's thousands and thousands of genes that function the body and everything, but these 23 genes, their function is that they override some of his female genes. So one of those genes that gets override, we have to presume, because women have this tendency to always be there for everybody. It's like, if I can do it, I have to do it. Okay. And you kind of go, well, why would that be? Well, when you look at a female biology, one of the differences between a man and woman is she can make a baby. And when you make a baby, you really have to be on all the time. It's just a never ending job. It's literally, and nature prepared her for that by giving her 25% more fat cells. Fat cells produce much more energy than muscle cells. Muscle cells is like sprinting. Fat cells is like long distance running. So literally, men just run out of energy. Often women go, I think my husband's lazy. And I go, no, not exactly. He has what's called the efficiency gene. Now, the efficiency gene, basically, and I'll ask all male audiences love this phrase because I say efficiency gene, it's rule of function. It can vary, but its rule of function is never do anything you don't have to do. If I don't have to do it, if I can get somebody else to do it, why should I do it? So there's the concept of that. We're, in a sense, we're always conserving our energy for the emergency. It's like a fireman. He sits around all day waiting for that bell to go off, and then he has the energy to do it. And that's because he burns most of his energy through his muscles. Whereas women, if they're relaxed, okay, if women feel safe, if women feel supported, if they feel like it's not all up to them alone, that they have backup, then their stress levels go down and then they can burn fat. And if they can burn fat, then they have huge amounts of energy, endurance energy. They can go on and on and on. They're
Wow.
designed for that. But as soon as a woman's in a stressful situation, and as you know, I was just on my way. I missed our appointment. It was put on my schedule later, and I was in the car with my wife going to buy groceries. And when we're going to try to buy the groceries. And she said, "This is too rushed. I don't want to, we'll go back home." I said, "Okay." Because she says, I don't like this feeling, because in her life, she has a partner who I'm her backup. And I create one of the secrets of communication around romance is if I plan a date, for example, I always give myself an extra 20 minutes to be late.
Oh,
In case there's traffic or whatever, because we'd be on the bridge, San Francisco Bridge, and there was traffic. My wife will go, "Oh, we're going to be late." I said, "No, no, I scheduled extra 20 minutes. No problem." See, that's thinking in advance is a really, really great piece of wisdom that I had to learn. See, women always think in advance. Men don't. And they're kind of like in the moment, it's like, I'll get there as fast as I can. Because if I'm in a rush, if I'm in a hurry, it doesn't really cause much stress in me. This is the biology of men and women. Once again, is danger actually causes men to calm down as long as they feel confident. If they don't feel confident, then danger or being late causes stress if you don't have confidence. A woman can have confidence, but if she's rushing around, it will produce adrenaline. Women produce adrenaline much faster than men. And when they do produce adrenaline, that means little problems, when little stress, but you still have confidence. She will have 8 times more blood flow to the emotional part of the brain. And to relax, she has to transform the adrenaline. Now, for men, if you have adrenaline, all you have to do is use your muscles, and that will reduce the adrenaline. You relax again. For a woman, if she can talk about what she's feeling, what's upsetting her, what her problem is, just talking about it will reduce the adrenaline, and she can relax again.
wow. So again, and this is all centered from biology and
Yep.
hormones, the differences between men and women. And so even more so, a woman who is single or even a man who is single, coming together in partnership and understanding the difference between men and women, you can realize why it is that we do need each other. And not in the traditional sense. Let's just say in the 1950s, the man needed to go to work to make the money to provide for the family because the woman wasn't working, but he felt needed. He had a role to fulfill, and so did she. But in the modern world, we know that's not the case. And yet there still needs to be, I believe, this mindset shift around how it is we can support each other in partnership and not in those traditional roles per se, but still in understanding the differences between our biology.
A partnership in providing emotional fulfillment for each other. And to summarize that, you can just listen to the opposite, which is couples who aren't emotionally fulfilled with each other.
Yeah.
Sometimes just look at the other side of it and you get more clarity. When a man says to me, "I'm done in this relationship," I'll ask him, "Well, I'll take him to the side and I say, "Okay, what's the reason?" And often a man can get right to the point of what the reason is. And it's almost the same phrase for a man. And he'll say, "Look, I've tried my best. Nothing I do is ever enough to make her happy."
Mm,
So that means he has a need that's not being fulfilled. And his need is to feel that I am needed by my partner, that I provide a significant level of happiness to her. So we're always gauging that. Now, I've never heard a woman say, "No matter what I do, it's never enough to make him happy." What women will
mhm,
typically say is along these lines of, "Well, I'm done with this relationship. I've given so much. I do this for him. I'm attentive for him. I helped him with this, and I get nothing back. I feel ignored. I feel neglected. I feel I'm not important. I feel he just takes me for granted." So
mhm.
she's very verbal, and women are typically more verbal when it comes to their complaints. Not that a man can't be, which is again a subtlety here. Women will be you're average. There's always exceptions, but when a woman starts to complain about something, men if they're having sex with a woman, meaning they're in a sexual relationship, a bond is taking place, which activates in the brain what's called mirror cells. And the mirror cells, if you have a complaint about me, well, then I'll have a complaint about you. The way men think of it, as long as you don't complain, I have no complaints about you. But if you're going to complain, then I've got equal complaints and even more. And so you should feel grateful. I'm not sharing all my complaints with you. So this is male psychology. And so I have to train men, and women can train men as well, as long as you don't say I'm training you. But but if my wife has a complaint, there is a tendency to balance it with my complaint. And what I teach men is don't complain. And it's not really a novel message. We've been taught this for thousands of years to be manly, so to speak, to be desirable to a woman is often what is considered manly. Uh, to be a man, you don't whine, you don't complain,
Right.
you don't show negative emotions. You become quiet.
Mhm.
And the problem today is when a man becomes quiet, women think, oh, he must hate me. He doesn't love me anymore. He doesn't want to connect with me anymore. Because when women become quiet, often that's what they're feeling. I
Yeah.
can't trust you. I'm not going to share what's inside, which is becoming quiet has always been a way for a man to process stress. And you might even think, where does that come from? We'll go back to the hunter-gatherer ages, very primitive parts when the brain was developing. A man's job was the dangerous job of hunting and standing guard, protecting, and he had to be quiet. Even as a young boy in Texas growing up, we'd go out deer shooting. You find a place, you hunker down, you stay really quiet, and that's it. And and this is the remedy for men, and yet psychology is pushing this whole idea that whenever you're stressed, you need to talk about your feelings. Now, when a man is experiencing chronic cortisol, that's different from adrenaline. Okay, adrenaline is moderate stress. For moderate stress, women need to talk about what's bothering them. For moderate stress, men need to stop talking and do something. That's one. But if a man has high stress, like when my wife died, that was the most stressful thing in my life. Devastating. 2 years of grief and processing emotions. Okay, so then I needed to talk a lot. But even in
Mhm.
that, a lot of it was internal, but also I needed to share. The first thing I did was call one of my best friends and cry and tell him what was going on, how I'm feeling. Because under big stress, then suddenly men are sort of knocked out of their masculine and they go to their feminine. So whenever you see, for example, a big stressful event for a man, other than my wife died or my business failed or I'm out of work, and what happens at those times of big stress, you can measure a man's hormones, and his male hormones are very low and his female hormones are very high. That's measured. His estrogen levels are very high. And big stress means there's danger and I've lost my confidence. I don't know what to do
Mm.
and I can't get help. So that's where men need training. So they always know there's something I can do. And, but if we don't train men to do that, then let's say the most important thing in his life is his wife when he loves her, and the communication isn't working. So he interprets what she's saying as attack. Okay, criticism. When women criticize or complain to to a certain degree, it will hit a limit, and then a man will feel that he's not loved. And we all want love. Men want love, women want love. And so when he's feeling threatened by her not loving him, the mistake he makes is he wants to explain to her why she's wrong. This is, now
Classic.
it's classic. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the universal issue is that men want
Mhm.
to explain why she's wrong and he's right. Now, first of all, why does he want to do that? Because in the work world, that works. See,
Mhm.
it's like if you're right, if I'm the leader of the pack, it's because I do the things that are right and I can point out to others what they do is wrong. Okay, so I know
Mhm.
the truth here. So then people want to follow me. My ideas resonate with a lot of people. So I've written, my books have sold to millions of people around the world. It's a huge thing. So in their minds, I won't say I'm right for everybody, but in their minds, John has a lot of wisdom. He's right about a lot of things. We'll put it simply. That makes money. And women don't go around looking for a guy who's always wrong. Okay.
Right.
So we feel threatened. But if a man can be taught at those times, don't talk, just listen. And the communication skill for men, and a woman can say to a man when he's trying to explain himself, she can say, hey, you really don't have to say anything. I just need to talk about what I'm feeling, and my feelings will change. Right now, I'm feeling stressed. I'm not feeling good. But if I can talk about it for a little while, then I'll feel good. As long as you don't say anything, you really don't have to explain yourself at all. And do that in a kind way. He goes, really? And he goes, yeah, just don't talk. Just don't talk and let me talk. Number two, and sometimes if you nod your head and try to listen and no, you don't have to fix anything. And you can say to me, my favorite thing I love to hear, you as a woman, I'm talking to your husband here. You see, you're being, what I love to hear is when I'm talking for you to just say something like, help me understand that better, or tell me more, or say, and what else? Those are three powerful phrases that he can practice. And so he knows he needs to know what to do, okay, while he's not talking. Otherwise, he will revert to, well, that's not exactly what happened, dear. Or I think maybe you're making a big deal out of this. It's not such a big deal. Uh, as soon as he says that, she's going to become more upset. It's like making her wrong. So just like he wants
Yeah.
to be right, he thinks to be right, I'm going to make her wrong. That she needs to be right. But logically speaking, here's the edge on it. She doesn't have to be factual. She's being factual about how she feels. It's not necessarily what's true about the outer world. It's what I'm feeling inside, and my feelings change. See, facts don't change, but feelings do change. And women have a remarkable ability, and men do as well, but it happens in a different way. Women have a remarkable ability to go from, I'm feeling upset, now I feel heard, I feel safe, I
Yeah.
feel better. And
Yeah.
I'm not upset with you. So this is a good communication skill.
Have you seen this with all of your women? Because I'm very curious, because especially women nowadays are very much in their masculine, like truly just talking about their feelings. Have you consistently seen that it helps every single woman to feel better?
No, they have to learn how to do it. That's why we have something called therapy. It's an education process. And
Mhm.
90% of the people who go to therapists are women, because talking is talk therapy, and men don't go because why do I need to pay someone to listen to what I say? I can tell my friends anything I want to say, and I don't need to say that much. So I can look in the mirror and talk. So see what's happening when you share your feelings, what you think. Share what you wish, what you want, what your feelings are. Particularly when you share feelings, more of the female hormones get produced. That's
Okay.
just the phenomena. So when you're estrogen is the female hormone, and one of the major ones. And when you're sharing feelings, estrogen levels go higher and higher. You see, when you share feelings, they don't have to be logical. See, that's what
Right.
you think. What you think is logical. What you feel may not be logical. It may be logical. It's hit or miss.
Mhm.
Okay. Because let me give you an example of that. Uh, my wife asking me to, she would complain to me sometimes, honey, you left the light on. You always leave the light on. Already, I can have an argument with her. I'd be a fool to do it, but she says, you always leave the light on. Honey, I don't always leave the light on. Now I've just invited an argument. Okay. She'll
Yep.
say, but you did this time and this time. And I say, yeah, but I didn't do this time and this time. But I just feel like it's a simple thing. Why can't you just turn the light out? And I say, it's not a big deal to me. That's why I don't turn it out. Okay. So
Right.
I'll give my reason, but all of that just makes her insignificant. See, I have to understand as a man that what I say affects her on an emotional level. And I say, well, why does it even bother you? She'll say, well, I feel like you don't even care about me. You don't care about what I think. Of course I care about what she thinks. And if I repeated that behavior over and over, it gradually didn't change it. In her mind, she'd be thinking, I've asked him 50 times and he keeps forgetting over the last 10 years. I guess he just doesn't love me. And that's what she'll feel. She will feel, I feel like you don't love me. Now, is that true? No, it's not true at all. Of course, I love you, honey. I just forget little things. But I have to understand, and she has to understand, there's two sides of trying to come together to communicate effectively. But she will, and this is a common thing. If a man does something over and over and over, a little thing. And as a therapist, it's the little things that build up into the big
Right.
things. This
Right.
is it's almost like comedy to hear couples fighting about, no, I said this and you said this.
Right.
Forget what you said.
Right. And
But
it's that age old expression of, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Do you want to understand how to communicate with your partner, or do you want to be right and maybe end up in divorce?
absolutely. No question about it. But to finish that other thought, it's just a thought that in her mind, she's thinking it's just a little thing. to remember to turn out the light, because for her, it's a little thing and it's easy to remember. For me, it's a little thing, so it's not easy to remember. Men do not remember little things, generally speaking. We have a kind of a ladder of priorities. What's the most important thing? Don't think about anything else unless it's number two. So this is where our brain tends to function, which is goal oriented, focus on that. Whereas women have a more expanded awareness of, well, if you do this, what would happen? And what would that affect here? And how would it affect the children? And how would it affect the finances? How would it affect these other things? She's going to have a more bigger picture that she tends to see, generally speaking. And if you want to see even physical evidence of that, our eyes are different. The cells around the eyes are dramatically more for women to actually see more. And for men, there's part of the eyes that women don't have developed is the ability to see dots moving in the distance, be it a football traveling down the football, traveling
Mhm.
down a football game, or an animal at a distance moving. So we're wired up in different ways. But there's this tendency of men to not notice little things, but think big. Because after all, you don't get paid for turning out light switches. You get paid for doing the big things that other people don't want to do. So or can't do. There's an aspect of masculinity is that traditionally all the male roles were doing the things were dirty, dangerous, difficult, inconvenient, and hard.
Mhm.
Not to say that women weren't doing some of that, but men particularly did this stuff. It's as if we had a conversation a long time ago and said, women, the bottom line for us is we want you to be happy, so you want to have sex with us, because sex is the very big deal. And so the women said, well, I think I'd be most happy if I got to do the things I like to do. And so what are those things? Well, I like to take care of the kids. This is a long time ago when you had a community of women helping you take care of the kids. I like to be in a nice neighborhood. I like to feel safe. I like to have food. I like to have a garden. I like to have plenty of time available to me to be with the family and so forth. And I don't want to go into the forest and risk my life. I don't want to stand guard at cold nights. I don't want to have to lift heavy things. You have more muscle mass. So he says, yes, I do. I'm happy to do that. As long as something provides a need, a meaningful need for a woman, it actually literally raises his masculine hormones and makes him feel really good. Not all men have been trained this way, though. This is how we're biologically suited. And we've evolved to where my muscles aren't necessarily going to win my wife's heart, because as she evolves into more masculine, more independence, more wholeness for her, feminine and masculine, the wholeness inside, she'll go to her masculine. But to get back to her female, one of the most important ways is to have a man do things for you to provide a level of emotional fulfillment. Now, what can I do for my wife's level of emotional fulfillment? Well, when she's stressed, I can say, oh, honey, tell me what's going on inside, and be a good listener and will help me understand that. And you're having that meeting today. How did it go? Oh, they said this and this and this. How did that feel to you? And then she shares a little bit about that and she talk about something else. And I would just listen. At the end, I might say something like, let me give you a hug. You do so much for so many people. And that's it. No
Yeah.
fix it, no solve it,
Yeah.
no advice, unless she really is asking for my advice, which she does sometimes.
Mhm.
Never give advice to a woman unless she's really asking. And I suggest to women, never give advice to a man unless he's really asking. Uh,
I think that's incredibly important and causes so many issues in relationship because it's almost like you're trying to be in charge then. It's like, hey, listen to me. I'm the authority, but no one really likes being told what to do unless they're asking for help, support, and guidance. And so communication being, I loved what you said earlier around asking to share and for the man asking her for more information. And so asking the questions, asking permission even like is now a good time. I have something I would like to share with you, for example.
yeah, that's a nice way to do it. And another way along the same thing, not better than, but another thing is just Bonnie would come home from her job and she's saying, John, with a big smile on her face, I want to talk about my day. I said, oh, what happened? And that would be it. It's kind of, how can you turn down that? And I just want to remind you, you don't have to say anything. I just want to talk about my day. And I know how that sounds to some women, like, well, I want a real conversation, like I have with my girlfriends. No, he's not your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And a lot of times women will say, and not that you can't have conversation, but when there's any kind of stress and you're joining a conversation where he's responding to what went on, he'll tend to want to solve the problem. And what you want to do is free him from that tendency because we're like emergency workers. If you got a problem, I got a solution and let me give it to you. And it's even in some situations when a man gives a solution, it's like it's a put down. Bonnie would come home from office sometimes with complaints and, oh, they didn't do this. Really, what happened? And I'd let her talk for a while listening. And then I'd say, honey, you don't ever seem to like your job. Why don't you just quit it? You could do something else. And she goes, then she taught me. She said, John, I just need to talk about it. I love my job. I love going to my job. It's great. It's just that I love being able to come home and talk about the things that didn't work because I
Mhm.
just need to get it out and then I'm fine. That's how I learned it. She just told me what she needed.
Smart
And
woman.
but you brought up something really, really key about women who are more on their male side or have
Yeah.
they have jobs that are supporting the expression of male hormones. That's what I mean by male side. If you're making a lot of testosterone, you're on your male side. And what stimulates testosterone is problems that you have to solve for money. Okay. Problems that you have to solve for money. Problems you have to solve for love is nurturing. Mothers are
Mm.
great at that. And ironically, they still make more testosterone doing that. But because they're not doing it for money, they're also making female hormones. So for women who want to have children, it can be an amazingly fulfilling experience, the women I know. And if you look at it, it's such a behavior that's aligned with the purpose of their body, okay, which
Mhm.
is making babies. You do have a whole setup. Not that every woman has to have children. It's just that it's an easy alignment. But even then, it's difficult because you need to have a man who takes care of you.
Right.
You're not designed to have babies alone.
Mm.
That's not the reality, uh, so when you're trying to do it yourself, it is a big stress. Now, again, life is not perfect. We all have different sources of stress. Nothing's ever the but we can look at when we're stressed as women to know what are the ways I can lower my stress levels. And for men, if you're stressed, what are the ways you can lower your stress levels? Because what I've seen is that there's some things that are mutual, but many things are very different. For example, a man, he's a little annoyed by his wife even. Just don't say it. Just ask her what's going on. Get her to talk a little bit and forget about yourself. As soon as a man is annoyed or bothered or resistant to what she's saying, if he expresses that resistance, when you talk about resistance, estrogen goes up. Okay. And that's already why he's feeling resistance is because his estrogen is too high. Men only when men experience adrenaline or resistance, stress, frustration. This is taking too long. Is she blaming me? Whatever it might be. That's moderate stress. Men can let go of moderate stress so easily. Women don't realize that. I could be grumbling about inside what she's saying, and then she changes the subject and it's gone. It's moderate. It's not a big deal. But when men become quiet, when there's moderate stress, women think it must be big stress because women typically become quiet when it's a big stress. And when women having a little stress, they often want to talk about it. That's going to produce the estrogen that will lower her stress levels and she'll relax again. But
Mhm.
men don't know that. Men think if you have to talk about it, it must be a big deal. I mean,
Right.
think about what men say all the time to women that women don't like. Honey, it's no big deal. And she can
Yep.
say, I know it's no big deal. I just want to talk about it. And then he says, well, if it's not a big deal, what do you need to talk about it for? Let's just have
Right.
fun. No, it's like learning that when she's upset about something, he thinks that she's making it a big deal. It's really a little deal as long as you don't interfere and make her wrong for it.
Right. And just let her express and just let her get it out.
So having said all that, I just want to, there's a little everything, there's a yes, but
Mhm.
it's best if she practices and he practices listening. See, everything takes some practice with this stuff. If she practices talking about things that are bothering her or stressing her out or exhausting her or that she doesn't like, anything like that, practice doing that about something that he's not responsible for. Because then
Otherwise, he'll think she's complaining about him.
him, he'll take it personally. It's to a certain extent, even some men are more on their female side, so they'll take things more personally. So you have to be a little careful if your man's that way. Uh, so you have to be aware that you may not be directly upset with him, but you could be talking about some problems in your life that he feels it's because of him that you're having that problem. Like, let's
And
say I have one client, and the woman keeps talking about how much she doesn't like her job, and she really doesn't like her job. She wishes she didn't have to have this job. She didn't need to make this money. What's he going to feel right away? It's like, gee, if I only made more money,
right.
so she
If I
wouldn't have.
provided, yeah, exactly. So he's
So,
going to take it personally.
so there's just subtleties here. Not that we have to be so afraid, because there's another aspect of this, that you love each other. And so it's easy if you're saying, oh gosh, I wish I could do something else. I didn't have to do that. But I am so grateful that you're in my life, because without you, I'd be all by myself. You see, you can balance negativity with positivity. That's a
Mhm.
beautiful aspect. It's just, I call them buffers. If you have a complaint about something, always sandwich it between something good, the complaint, something bad. I'm
Right.
sorry, something good, something bad, a complaint, and then something good, as opposed to more bad. Uh, it softens everything. And then there's so many aspects, but one of the key things is, if you think about having a bank of fulfillment. Uh, if I've done many, many good things for my wife this week, and they're just little things. I think what was the most recent thing I did? I had to go on some errand somewhere. Oh, I was taking care of my daughter at her house, and my wife was home, and she wanted to have a yogurt ice cream kind of thing. She was wanting to go out that night to do it. So, oh, you have to go to your daughter's house. So, yeah, I'm going to go there. And she's kind of like, oh, I said, well, we can do it when I get home. But instead, I just stopped and got the yogurt on the way home
Mm,
and brought it to her. And she, oh, that's so thoughtful of you. See that you got a response like, oh, that was so nice. That's like a dollar in the bank. Okay. And
mhm.
they build up and they build up and build up. And then so the day that I do something that's a little annoying to her, that's just a dollar taken out of the bank. Okay. But there's a lot there. So you want to build up points in the relationship, so that both people are feeling like, yeah, we're doing really good together. Then how do you build up points? This is a key thing. It's little things that a man does creates points for a woman. Big things create just 1 point. Little things create just 1 point. So we have to look at the math here.
Yeah.
So I could be thinking, okay, women like flowers. I'll give her 2 dozen flowers. That's 24 points. And now I don't have to do it for several months. No, you get 1 point for that. And I look at it just harmonally. You bring her a rose, bring her 3 roses, bring her 24 roses. It's an act of love. And so she feels not forgotten. She feels seen. She feels acknowledged. She did something beautiful for her. Little things. Now, flowers may not be it for every woman, but you find out what are the things that work for your wife, the little things of offering help and so forth. You wanted me to talk about communication skills. Here's my favorite, or one of my favorites, which is it's hand signals. Again, it's with men. Hand signals are really good. Asking
Because
is
they're
good.
more visual.
Well, when we're out in the forest and we're hunting, you use hand
Mm,
signals. You go here, I'll go here. Watch out. They have, even in baseball, they have all these hand signals between the pitcher and the. So they're nonverbal. Nonverbal. Men are not as verbal as women. This is a scientific fact. That with part of the brain that's verbal in women is much bigger, much more active, much more connected to the whole brain. Men aren't. We're more active. The muscles are there, and so forth. The reaction time of men, generally speaking, is much faster than a woman's. It's to do, and for women, it's to share, to talk. Uh, so I was gathering one of my favorites, but little points. These are like the little points you can get, and I've got some standard ones in all my books, such as 4 hugs a day, initiated by the man. That's a point each time. If you have to search for her, you get a point for searching for her, pursuing her. Where's mom? Oh, you upstairs? I want to give you a hug. Go somewhere, put some effort and energy into giving her the hug. See, these are little things. But another one is, and, I know some people are listening, Emerald, who are also single, and they might be thinking, yeah, but I'm not in a relationship. But I want to point out, but I have been in relationships, and I didn't practice these things, and I didn't know these things. And maybe that would have made that relationship better. See, because all when relationships end, many times you feel like a sense of failure and can I really trust myself or can I trust the relationship? And then, or I have to go through a lot of judging and judging another person, whether I want to get in a relationship. This, you can avoid a lot of that if you look back at your past relationship and you go, well, maybe they're the wrong person, but boy, we did not have these communication skills. It could have been a
Yeah.
lot easier. And my next relationship can be really easy as well. So whether you're in a relationship or not, we've all been in relationships, and it's a way for us to find completion in them, building a greater sense of motivation and awareness of what's possible to be.
Well, and couldn't you also practice? We could argue if we're talking to single women, you could practice with your girlfriends. You could practice talking about it when you've had a stressful day, practice asking for help and support, practice saying, I would just like to vent and I don't even need your opinion. Are you available to just hear me? Right? Like we can still practice. We're always in relationship with other humans, even if it's not intimate.
No question about it. I would look at the things that you said you could practice with. I- I- Certainly, the difference between two women and a woman and a man, I just point out a distinction there. But what you said is right. Okay, but here's the difference: is that first of all, with another woman, before you ask, you already feel like you've earned it.
Mm.
Okay? That women keep score all the time with each other, and also conversation wise, you can't just say to a woman, I'm going to be a woman, you're a woman. I say, look, I just want to talk about my day. I don't want to hear anything from you.
You're right. We don't do that.
No, we don't do that. And it would be very inappropriate. Women are like, often, even one of the reasons women want to get men to talk is because if you go on Venus and one woman says, oh, I want to go talk to Carol, tell her what happened in my life. So this is Jane going to Carol. Jane feels, oh, I want to tell her what's going on in my life, but that would be rude. I have to ask Carol what's going on in her life first. So you have to sort of
Mm,
earn it, and then you get your rights. Your husband, it's even better if you just say, honey, you don't have to say anything, just relax. But I just need to vent this stuff and know that I want to feel more connected with you. And when we talk about, and this would do it, you don't have to say anything. And right now, I prefer you don't. And there are
mhm,
some men who are more producing more estrogen in their body. Maybe they have, been influenced by our culture so much, which is, well, I want to talk too. And that's okay if it's equal. Generally,
mhm.
what I see over and over, and you have to realize I see challenged relationships over and over, but also I see people who just want to, at my workshops, just want better relationships. And the thing I hear from women the most is, yeah, my husband, he's like from Venus. When you talk about women needing to talk, he needs to talk. He talks, he talks, he talks. Oh my God, I get so sick of it. I can't believe it. And I say, yeah, but you don't tell him, do you? I said, well, no, it would hurt his feelings. And it would hurt his feelings. He's on his girl's side. Because if I told
Right.
my wife, you're talking too much, I don't want to hear it, talk to somebody else, that's going to hurt her feelings. Okay. And
Mhm,
that's going to it causes her heart to shut down. Uh, she loses one of the greatest ways for her to lower stress in her life, to be happy in her life, to be fulfilled, is to be able to have somebody that you can share the depth of your feelings with if you're a woman. There's another kind of relationship with your friends, like you're talking about. You share with your friends, and there's a understanding as women talk to each other that a man can never have. I mean, he doesn't wear high heel shoes. He doesn't put on lipstick. He doesn't worry about his hair so much. He's not checking in the mirror all the time. How I look today. Uh,
mhm.
we have ourselves as men and women biologically. I'll come back to it. This basic need for men to have more testosterone, 10 times more than a woman, estrogen, 10 times more than a man, 20 times more than a man to feel romantic. I mean, these are outrageous differences when you measure them. And so, what stimulates estrogen? Well, it stimulates estrogen when a woman feels safe. So part
Mhm.
of putting on makeup, that's the whole thing about masks is you feel safe. It's protection. Even tattoos now, I've analyzed that one. Not having tattoos, I put on fake tattoos one time just to see why people put on tattoos and traditionally what it's like. And having a tattoo is like having armor. It's
Yeah.
protection. It's a part of, look, this is not me. You can't actually touch me. You're seeing this.
Yeah.
It's not me. And the same thing with clothes, but tattoos are more profound. And so
Mhm.
what you found is it's just another protection. If you remember the days where the movie stars all wear dark glasses, okay?
Yeah.
And anytime you wear dark glasses, you can look at anybody, you can do whatever you want, you feel protected from the world. There's a place of safety that comes with all these makeups and outfits and so forth. And women are more vulnerable than men when it comes to their person.
Mhm.
Men are more vulnerable when it comes to their results they produce in life. Okay. In terms of, I did this, I didn't do that. You know, it was hard to me when I was recognized all the time. I'm not recognized all the time. The younger generation doesn't know who I am. But there was back in the 90s, not a person in the street didn't recognize who I was. And that was not comfortable, actually. And you do want to feel a certain sense of some privacy here.
Yeah.
And, you know, people go, oh, they want to be celebrities. Talk about these celebrities, they can't go anywhere. And, you know, and to be private means you don't have people looking at you, questioning how you look today and what's that and what are people always wanting something from you. So privacy is very, very important. It's a protection. But women, historically and to this day, your major job is you are the gatekeeper. So men have to knock on the gate. You know, we have to do things to get in. You are the gatekeeper. And when you give up that power, that's your main power, is men respect that. But as soon as you give up the gatekeeper, men don't respect. And men have to learn how to respect, but you have to set those, you can't be a doormat, you know,
Mhm.
and it's
You need
very,
to set the bar, set
yeah,
the
you have to set
standard
the
of like, you
bar.
need to do this in order to have access to my body, for example, to have access
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
me as your girlfriend.
And you need to do this in order to have access to my feelings.
Yeah.
Say that my thoughts are not as vulnerable. So you can have a logical conversation and completely disagree with each other, and you're fine. It's like a fencing match, but nobody's really going to get stuck. You got armor on. The mind is protective with logic, but emotions are not. You know, they're
Mhm.
emotions, and when you fall in love with somebody, then you're even more vulnerable. So
Yeah.
this is where the communication skills are so important. And if we don't have those skills, women will not feel safe. And I guess I keep wanting to come back to this point you made. Well, these women who are more independent, are they able to share their feelings? Generally not. Generally
Yeah.
not. And
It's
they can share their, okay, so here's a little lesson here, which is interesting. The word feeling, you can have a feeling, which is what you think, like, I feel you don't love me. That's a belief. I feel my belief. And we call those feelings, but really they're beliefs. It's, I'm knowing my belief through my feelings. Okay. So feeling is like a
Mhm.
way of knowing something. I know something because I think it, or I know something because I feel it. But when I'm talking about vulnerability, is your real vulnerability is what you feel on an emotional level. See,
Yeah.
that's the vulnerability I'm talking about. Certainly,
Right.
to feel, oh, I feel like you don't love me. I feel like you don't support me. I feel like I'm all by myself. That's somewhat vulnerable. There's no question about it. But what's more vulnerable, which I just have to say, which produces more estrogen, okay, is when you feel afraid, when you feel sad, when you feel disappointed, when you feel lonely, when you feel insecure. See, these
Mhm.
are the things that every woman has inside of her, and lots of women don't even know it's inside of them. Okay,
Right.
so
Because they haven't practiced connecting in with their feelings because they've been in their masculine and hyper independent.
and quite often, not always, but quite often, it's because they did not have a father role, a
Mm,
father who they learned to be, who was there for them,
yeah.
meaning that I can depend on a man for something. If you have no father, or if your mother doesn't feel I can depend on your dad for something of meaning for me,
Mhm.
that where do you have the practice all the way through childhood of knowing that you're upset about something, you can go to daddy and daddy's going to give you a hug, daddy's going to love you, you know, so you have no experience of that. And so what you know is, in many cases, a lot of cultures are like this, is that where the cultures where the family wants a boy and not a girl.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you get a girl and then the father's disappointed he doesn't have a boy. And so then the girl gets the message, oh, I'm not enough. And that feeling their whole life, they'll make them feel like, I can prove to daddy, I can be like a boy. I can be like a boy. A lot of women who are independent are trying to prove that either I can survive on my own, don't trust a man because you can't depend on them, or I want my dad's approval. Okay.
Right.
There's a lot of challenges from the old cultures, but
Yeah.
I want to just, again, see the logic of where that came from, because I always try to look at the good reasons things came about, because people are not so stupid. Uh, but in some of my work in China, they have always, they want a boy. Okay, they want a
Yeah.
boy, and the reason they want boys is because they didn't have police. This was, imagine living in an environment where there's no police. And if you have something of worth, somebody can come steal it. So the objective was to have as many boys as you could, so you'd have as many wives as you could to produce as many boys as you could, so you'd have an army which would protect the family. You wanted more boys who could fight because it was about muscles. It wasn't about typing on the computer, which women are exceeding at, but not marking or anything. It was just, I need some raw muscle here as a sacrifice if anybody wants to take from us, because people were not advanced like we did. They didn't have access to conscience. They didn't know you shouldn't steal other people's things. They're all psychopaths, basically. We still have that remnant in our society. They say one out of 10 man or woman is a psychopath, which means that they don't have access to conscience. All they do is they just, what's good for me is good for everybody, is the idea there. What's good for me is good for everybody. That's, to go a little deeper in it, that's one extent what we're calling a narcissist today. But you'll see all on social media and everything, what are the qualities of a narcissist? And it pretty much he's selfish. And it's a he.
Right. It's never a woman when it's referring. It's always the woman referring to the man as the narcissist. You don't hear it the other way around.
And if actually you study psychology and the codes of psychological problems, the narcissist is nothing like what those things are pointing out. Okay, they're just saying examples of a man being selfish. Okay, he's forgetting about you. He's late. He doesn't care about you. When he talks about himself, he's not interested in you. Okay, so that's a selfish person. We just say selfish. But to a certain extent, that's every man if he's in a situation which doesn't bring out the best in him. It's not like a condition. Psychopath is different. Okay, they have no conscience. But you get the most common thing women will see, and what I hear, okay, is, oh, he's a narcissist. Well, give me examples of him being a narcissist. Well, he doesn't care about what I feel. And I kind of go, most men don't care what you feel if what you feel is angry at him.
Fair.
If a man gets angry or feels hurt when you're complaining to him, if he was a narcissist, he wouldn't be angry. He would think, how can I manipulate the situation? How can I just make you wrong? How can I just make you wrong, as opposed to be emotionally affected by it? See, the more you care for someone, the more you're going to be affected when they criticize you or blame you. And we have to give each other a break. Women will complain. They don't realize why men take it so personally. And men will tend to interrupt women and not care so much about their feelings. And it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Why are you being so negative? Why does he say that? Not because he's a narcissist. He could talk with his buddies and his buddies will say, don't be so negative. You're right. Our buddies will say, why are you complaining about it? Grow up, And we'd be like, okay, I should do that. So if we come back to, again, sort of the sensitivities of being a woman, is feelings have the greatest vulnerability. There is the feelings. So telling a woman she should not feel what she feels is putting an arrow through her heart. Telling a man you shouldn't do what you're doing, or you should do this, is putting an arrow through his heart. Because men identify more with doing, women tend to identify more with their being, with their person. So again, you could tell a guy, honey, you're getting too fat. And done in the right way, most men are like, you're right.
Correct.
And I've seen some guys do this. They go, you're right, but look at this.
Awesome reply. I love that.
But a man should never say those things to a woman. Never. Just period. If she needs help on her body shape, she should go to a body shape doctor. And it's not up to you to say those things. It's too personal. And yet there are some men who are more on their female side. Their feelings would get hurt. They couldn't laugh it off. And some women would think, oh, you're so cruel to men. No, men have to toughen up. It's a part of being a man, not take things so personally. Otherwise, that means he has more estrogen. And anytime a man is angry, and this is the worst of masculinity, comes out when they're angry. When a man is angry, you can measure his hormones. His estrogen, his female hormones are off the chart. His male hormones are going down.
Because he's super emotional.
Yeah. Anytime you're emotional, it's estrogen going up. Anytime a man is angry, it's estrogen going up and testosterone going down. If men have testosterone going up, they're confident, they're cool, calm, collected. that's centeredness. Cool off, cool off.
Sure.
Even you get two guys fighting in a bar, you know what you
Mhm.
do? You have to just don't say stop. Okay, don't tell me what to do. You just point them in another direction. It's
Yeah.
like stop eye contact between the two of them. Which,
Well,
since you want to be talking about communication, I'll say one other one
okay.
popped in my mind. I have so many. But another one is I heard this terrible advice, which is why it comes to mind. It was the one secret to avoid all arguments, some expert was saying, was when you're upset with your partner, look them in the eyes and talk directly to them while you're looking in the eyes. It's the worst thing to do. The worst thing to do if you're upset with someone to look them in the eyes, and particularly men, just get into their space and look them in the eyes, and suddenly the fight will break out. This is this whole thing with men. You'll see it in the movies, a man, I can get close to you. That means I'm not afraid of you at all, but I'm
Yeah, like
gonna attack
nose to nose.
you nose to
Mhm.
nose. This is like inviting a fight, and I'm not scared of you, but i- it's like the windows of the soul, eye contact. If what you have is negativity, don't look somebody in the eyes. If what you have is love and appreciation, look them right in the eyes. Honey, I'm so happy to see you. Eye contact is great.
Ah, I love that. That seems like the perfect note to end things on. Are there any additional resources that you would suggest? I know you have plenty of books, like When Mars and Venus Collide, for example, with communication, your newest book, Beyond Mars and Venus. But are
Put
there
that
any
right
other?
here so people
Yeah,
can
put it right
right
there. Beautiful. It's a
there. Right
fabulous read.
there.
Is there any other resources that you would suggest of yours to help someone go deeper with communication and understanding the differences between?
I would hope that anybody who wants to have any woman who wants a better relationship with her husband or a future boyfriend, future husband, would go online to marsvenus.com and take our free class. It's a 3-day class. It's free, of us interacting with you through the computer. And then if you like that, go on to our other course, which is called Understanding Men. It's for women only. Understanding Men. It's a 6-week course online. I wrote it with my daughter wrote it with me as her editor. I mean, she's really smarter than me. She's been married 10 years. She's got it all down. I had to sort of work my way through it, but I have more life experience. So I edit it with her, and she wants to check out everything. Is this true? Is this true? Which is good. So, but she does a marvelous job. Uh, Exercises, frequently asked questions, affirmation, all kinds of stuff is in it. It's really beautifully done. So that's Understanding Men. And if you're in a relationship, have your husband, boyfriend watch it with you. Just invite them
Beautiful.
to do it, and they don't have to do the exercises. Be sure to say that. They don't have to do the exercises. Men are terrified of doing these quizzes, because if he answers something wrong, it can be a big conversation. But the key thing is for him to understand what you don't know about men. It makes men much more empathetic, much more compassionate, and also makes him feel sort of redeemed, but because realize the problems aren't all him, because the class does help women see their mistakes in dealing with men and how they can do it differently.
I love that. So it's approaching both sides of the equation because it's not just women, it's not just men, but how can
Right.
we truly understand each other to have happy and harmonious relationships?
Nicely
So,
said.
yes, thank you. Thank you, John, so much for your time today and all the work that you've done throughout the decades. I really appreciate you. And we'll put all the links down in the show notes. And I hope you have a beautiful evening.
Thank you. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.